I guess we should call this segment All Things Books because I'm not going to be reading just one book during this time. We're going to use this time to kind of see what you remember about the books that we've looked at so far this quarter. All right, I'm going to need you right now to pull out a piece of paper and something to write with. And I'm just curious to know what you remember about the different books that we've shared together. So in a minute, I'm going to begin holding up the individual books. I'll be holding up 9 of the 10. One of the books that people refer to as I Am Special or You Are Special by Max Lucado was read to you by a student from school. And you might want to write in a few minutes about that book if you'd like that. I'm going to be holding up the other 9 copies for you in just a second. I want you to follow the instructions that I'll be giving you based on whether you're a kindergartner or 1st through 5th grader. All right, now for the first one. This is the Little Red Riding Hood version that we just finished a little while ago. This one is a little different in that it's called The Little Red Riding Hood, A Newfangled Prairie Tale. So it had a little different twist on it. I want you to look at this book. If you're a kindergartner, I would ask you to draw the main character, who you would pick as the main character of this book. If you are not a kindergartner, I'm going to ask you to write me, if you're a 1st grader, I'm going to ask you to write me one sentence about the main character of this book. And if you're in grades 2nd, 3rd, 4th, or 5th grade, I'm going to need a little more from you. I want you to write me one sentence describing the main character. Maybe you're going to write about how the main character looked or how the main character acted, describing their actions. But you're going to write me one sentence if you're in grade 2nd through 5th grade, describing the character, and then one other sentence about something important that happened to that character in the story. So what was something important that happened to the main character in this story? You can go ahead and stop this at any time if you need to. Again, kindergartners, get started drawing your main character, and others can go ahead and start answering what I've asked you to do. Let me go ahead and open a few pictures of the main character here doing her thing, just to help you remember what was covered in here. Okay, so you're writing one sentence describing the main character and one sentence about something important that happened to that character in the story. Some of you may not have listened to all of the books that we're going to be reviewing during this time, and that's okay. You can only write about what you've been able to experience. Okay, I'm going to keep going. At different times during this, you'll find it very helpful to go ahead and stop the segment so that you can look, take time to think about what you're writing, and then so you can really look at what you're writing down. I'm going to be asking you to do a few other things during this. All right. First of all, I want you to think about, now that you've written about the Little Red Riding Hood version that we looked at, I want you to remember the first book that we looked at together, which was The Ox Cart Man by Donald Hall. And I want you to think about who the main character was in the story. If you are in 1st grade, if you can write me one sentence about the main character. And if you're in grades 2 through 5, I want you to write me one sentence about the main character and a second sentence describing the main character, particularly how the main character looked. Okay, moving on to our next selection. This one is Picker McClicker. It's local fiction. And this book is by Alan Johnson. If you'll remember, we looked at it together, and there were all kinds of adventures that happened to Picker McClicker in the story. You might remember that he went to France, correct? And he was in a competition for picking grapes. You might remember that. Okay, and you might remember this fellow, Big Louie. Big Louie first kind of made fun of Picker McClicker. Somebody said kind of like how Goliath made fun of David when David came up against Goliath in the Bible. And but then later on we kind of see that Big Louie starts to be more friendly toward Picker McClicker and his family. Alrighty. Feel free to stop this at any time. Alright, the next book that we're going to look at is Goldilocks and the Three Bears by James Marshall. You might remember this story. It was one that was a little bit different than any version of the Goldilocks story that you've been used to. Alright, I want you to write down the name of the main character in Goldilocks and the Three Bears by James Marshall. And then I want you to write one sentence if you are in first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, or fifth grade. I want one sentence describing the main character. You know that that main character is going to be Goldilocks. So how could you describe her? Describe how she acts. You could describe how she looks. Alrighty. Feel free to stop this at any time. Alrighty. We're going to look now at another book. This book was Chicken Little, but it was a different version of Chicken Little than you had before. This was Chicken Little, A Cautionary Tale by George Bridge. The main character is going to be, you'll remember, Chicken Little. Okay, I want you to write for me a description of Chicken Little. What was Chicken Little like in this story? What character qualities did we see in his life? Was he brave? Was he a character who showed that he was a coward? He was afraid to do anything. Also, in this story, I want you to write what was the most important surprise. What was something in here that surprised you the most in this version of Chicken Little? Okay, a book that you hadn't had a lot of experience with was the book Song of the Swallows by Leo Politi. And remember, this was the book about the children who hung out at a mission. They came to a mission and they did certain things where they put the flowers out. And one thing they really liked was to be able to watch the swallow birds as they came. So for main characters, you might choose the swallow birds because they were part of the main theme of the book, or you might want to write about the boys and girls who were in this book. If you can remember names of any of the characters, go ahead and write those down. If you can remember the time of year that the birds came out, go ahead and write that down. Some of your parents have been sending me the work that you've done for me during this quarter, and you're emailing it to me and then attaching it. Other people have been making notes on your log for library, which is fine. Other people are doing things separately and turning them in to your homeroom teacher. I just want to see the feedback that's letting me know that, yes, I am doing what I need to be doing for library, and I'm learning. I'm learning how to pick out characters. I'm learning how to describe characters, and I'm learning how important it is to watch when you're reading a book to see a character develop as a story goes on. For example, you may have started out seeing in the Chicken Little book that Chicken Little didn't show a lot of bravery earlier in the book, but as it went on, he stepped forward as a leader. So when you're reading, you want to be watching how the characters develop, how they get stronger in their leadership abilities. Okay, another book that we looked at by Danae Dobson is Wolf and the Paper Route. You might remember that there were some bullies that were shown in this story, and that there is a main character here, Chrissy, and her brother Mark, and they were challenged by these bullies, which could have made Mark look like he was not a faithful person. He wasn't someone who was dependable. Matter of fact, it influenced what the newspaper owner thought of him because of what these other boys were doing. If you can think of the other boys' names, you may write those names down now. There was another book that had us look at Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln, and it kind of touched on some different things in his life in this picture book. You might remember looking at it earlier. For this one, I want you to write me 3 sentences about what you learned about Abraham Lincoln in this book that you didn't already know. It seems like it's been such a long time since we looked at this book by Louise Borden. And one of the things that I remember from the book are these illustrations. And there were illustrations like this where people made fun of Abraham Lincoln. They said he looked like a monkey. They said he was very tall and awkward, and he wasn't someone who needed to be a leader because he wasn't attractive to look at. We know that Abraham Lincoln went on to be one of our best presidents. He was able to bring both the North and the South together in some ways. And some of you had wanted to do more drawings from different angles of Abraham Lincoln than I had you do earlier when we first looked at this. Okay, Henry's Freedom Box. You'll remember this one by Ellen Levine. And I would like you to tell me the main character, Henry. Okay, great. What did Henry do that showed courage in this story? Could you have done what he did? Why do you think he did it? What characteristics do you see in Henry that are characteristics that would be good to have? Would you say that he was crazy to do it? Would you say that he was courageous? All right. I want to look at one other thing with you. Now that you've had a chance to look at some characters and kind of review them, I want to go on to another thing that I want you to look at. I want you to think with me for a minute of all of the characters that we've looked at. We just kind of looked quickly at a bunch of them. I want you to pick the one character in any of those books that you think showed what we know from in the Bible, in the book of Galatians in the New Testament, is where they're listed. The fruits of the Spirit. We sing about them in chapel every week. And so I want to review what I'm talking about when I'm asking you to pick a character that shows these fruits of the Spirit. And so let's look at that together first. Remember, the fruits of the Spirit are love, joy, peace, patience. Some of you are singing the song. Kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. What do I mean by that? All right, which one character from any of the books showed love, joy, peace, meaning that they weren't fighting, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, meaning that they're not quitters, they're not quitting, gentleness, and self-control. Write the name down of the character that you have picked out. Write down the name of the character that you think shows the most of these characteristics. Who shows the most joy? Who shows the most faithfulness, meaning that they're not quitters? Who is the kindest? So I want you to find one character from any of those books that you think shows most of these fruits of the Spirit from the Bible, and write the name down. All right? The person, it may be a person, it may be an animal, if you think about what we've looked at over this quarter so far. All right. If you are in 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade, or 5th grade, can you write a paragraph about why you chose that person or that animal as having the most fruits of the Spirit? By the way, some of you are wanting to let me know which books you've liked in this series so far. So let's talk about that for a second. You can write me a paragraph. I would like you to pick a favorite book from all of these that we've just reviewed, and I'd like you to write me a paragraph about why you like that book the best. Is that book going to be one of the more historical books, like the book about Abraham Lincoln? Or is the book going to be a different version of popular stories, like a different version of Little Red Riding Hood, or a different version of Chicken Little? Write me a paragraph about your favorite book from all of the ones that we've looked at this quarter. If you're in kindergarten, can you just write down the name of your favorite book? If you're in 1st grade, can you please just write down the name of your favorite book? Again, if you're in grades 2, 3, 4, or 5, I want a paragraph from you that would be 3, 4, or 5 sentences explaining who your favorite character was and why. That character, remember, could be an animal. Doesn't have to be a person. All right? I hope you've liked this chance to kind of look back at what we've looked at so far this quarter. It's been very fun for me to be able to kind of share some of these books with you. And I hope you've been able to do this on your own without having to have your parents involved a lot. From time to time, I've asked you to say certain things to your parents or look at certain things. It's important during this time when I can't be with you each week for you to be getting some more reading into your system. And so we've enjoyed looking at these things together. We only have a few more weeks left of school as you're looking at these, and I can't tell you how I'm missing you. You have been a huge blessing to me this year in the classroom. And I know when I see you, I'm probably going to have you introduce yourself to me again, just like you did back in end of July and early August when I started running into some of you. And the reason for that is some of you are getting taller. You are looking more grown up. You're getting ready to move into the next grade. And so I might not recognize some of you because you're going to be an inch or so taller than when I've seen you before, especially if I don't see you again until next August. So be sure and reintroduce yourself to Mrs. Sims because I may not recognize you the way many of you are growing up. If you run into me when we are through with this time of social distancing, you better come up and give me a hug, and maybe we'll be out in Publix together or somewhere else. If you see me from a distance and we're still social distancing, remember you can wave at me. I'll be waving at you. I've been able to see some of you out walking and exercising and doing things. We're going to stay at a distance until we know everything is better. But I hope that you have enjoyed this time that we've had together, and that you are thinking about what you're going to be doing for the fall. Come by and see me in the library. I look forward to seeing you again. Have a great, great summer. And best wishes to you. Know that I'm praying for you, and I miss you people. Bye-bye.